Around 2 years ago, I was working on two Telex ACC-4000 series tape duplicators. These units sound really great. Here's a sample. With that being said, these duplicators all seem to have a number of issues, and service information / general documentation on them is scarce. I made this video to discuss these machines and hopefully share what I've learned with others. In addition, I'd like to include scans of the schematic for the ACC-4000XL and some STLs I made for the gears within the duplicators. Let's dig in. So, this all started back when I was running a small living room tape label called Scavenger Sounds. I got an ACC-4000XL from an e-recycling place in order to duplicate tapes because I was tired of daisy chaining a bunch of decks together with switches. When I got the duplicator, the pinch rollers were made of a yellow kind of like rubber material, which I later found out was polyurethane, and they were completely melted within the wells of the deck. I also tore the thing open and it was full of dead spiders and spider webs everywhere. I wish I took better images of it, honestly. After doing measurements with calipers, I was able to make my own replacement pinch rollers with generic rubber rollers from eBay. I just reused the bushings from the old pinch rollers, but the gears in every single transport were just smashed, and the machine made an awful grinding noise when I tried to engage it. It's like when I tried to press play, rewind, fast forward, whatever. It just made like this noise of like, and that's honest to God interpretation of it. And yeah, you know, that's how it was. Anyway, I collected the pieces of the smashed gears and tried to glue them back together. And I was able to kind of get a vague idea of what they looked like. So then I started messing around with CAD software and making replacement gears. Another thing I did was I actually took the gears and I ran them over an ink pad and then rolled it onto paper and counted the number of teeth. There were several teeth missing from each gear, but I was able to get a good idea of the number of teeth per gear. So anyway, while I was doing all of this, I'm sorry, I'm recording this video in my backyard and there's a million mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes are biting the fuck out of me. They're like biting my ankles, they're biting my arms, they're biting everything. So anyway, while I was working on this bad boy, I got a second one, and the second machine I got from Craigslist. And I bought my second machine from a guy who claimed it worked perfectly. He was like, "Oh, this worked forever ago, not sure if it works now, I'm not even sure how to operate it," but he claimed it worked perfectly. He's like, this thing works great. I don't know how it works, I don't know anything about it, but it fucking works great. So I was like, whatever. And that one was full of black soot, and it looked like it'd been through a building fire, honestly. The heads on it also looked really rough, and when I lifted it up, I could hear like a sound, like something was moving inside of it. It didn't seem promising whatsoever. Anyway, I got that one home, and I fired it up. And I was greeted with the same exact noise, the same exact like, like Jonathan Davis ass fucking noise with this thing trying to start up. And several small gear pieces rolled out from under the plastic hood on the machine, and they landed on my living room table, so that was awesome. But I decided to take glue again, glue them back together, and do the same thing, do measurements, and this time I measured the bushings for the gears as well. And after this, like, I found that they were pretty much the same as the ones in the previous machine. This machine was a 4000 standard, the previous one was a 4000XL. The only difference I could really find was that they seemed to be slightly smaller in diameter, and I could chalk that up, honestly, to factory tolerances. So I spent an afternoon finishing my designs for the gears and decided to use an old Ender 3 3D printer that I had from school to print off a couple test designs. I printed the designs in PLA, and when I first installed the gears, the transport spun, but it would eat tapes. And I realized this was because the torque was off. Like, I put my finger on the gear, and there was no resistance in that mating chain between the gears. So I was like, yeah, this is a problem. So eventually I figured it out. I tweaked my design a little bit, and then I let the gears set. And I applied some white lithium grease to them, and then kind of like moved them with my finger to get things running until the machine would run on its own. And then I just let it run for about an hour. And eventually, my 3D printer probably sucks. It's probably a low-level model. There's probably imperfections in the print. Eventually, those imperfections worked their way out, and the gear looked pretty nice, honestly. And it seemed like I was getting adequate torque. Like, I put my finger on the gear, and there was good resistance. So I popped the tape in the transport, and it worked fine. Like, it would play the tape all the way through, or I guess copy the tape all the way through. But all of the duplicated copies just had a loud buzzing noise on them. Like, the noise, it was just like a mosquito noise. Kind of like little bastards that are biting my ankles right now. After messing with the machine for a long time, I noticed that the gears that I had printed, which I printed with PLA, were starting to crack. So I decided to reprint them, but I didn't know what material I wanted to print them in. I decided on nylon, and I had a bunch of friends advise me that nylon filament is a pain in the ass to print on a 3D printer. And they were right. It took me a long time to figure out how to do it and how to set my printer up. I had to buy an all-metal hot end and build a little enclosure for my 3D printer to actually be able to print nylon. And even then, my gears were still coming out warped. So I screwed with it a long time. It's gonna sound crazy, and I'm sure some 3D printer expert is gonna like give me a lecture. But if you run some vegetable oil through the hot end for a while and just let it kind of burn off, I noticed that was helping me a lot with performance and with getting everything to work properly. Anyway, after trial and error, I got the gears to print kind of how I wanted them to print. They look pretty decently. So I installed them in the XL, the 4000XL. I let them set, and the machine seemed to be working perfectly, but again, still had that fucking mosquito noise, that buzz going on. So I started troubleshooting things, digging around with a multimeter, and I pretty quickly realized that the main preamplifier board, which is the one board that's directly under the top plastic cover, the one that contains the channel meters on it, it wasn't lighting up, and it wasn't really showing any signs of life whatsoever. So I looked closer at the board, and I noticed several damaged traces, and all of the SMD electrolytic capacitors pretty much were leaky, and you could see electrolyte just had spilled out onto the board. So I ordered some capacitors from China and patched the broken traces with sections of wire. Then I waited. Took a couple months, but my SMD electrolytic capacitors came in the mail. Nobody encourages you to fix your own stuff these days, honestly. The modern consumerist mindset is, this thing's broke, just throw the bastard away. And honestly, companies rely on this heavily too, and encourage the production of products that deliberately break. A side effect of this whole ordeal is that people have become comfortable letting those old school electronic component shops that we used to have when we were kids vanish. There's no more Radio Shack, there's no more Fry's, there's not a place you can just go and find parts for your project. It's kind of bullshit. You have to order everything from the internet, and it takes forever to get here. I bought the parts in December, and they came in March, so there was a pretty long period where I was just doing nothing on the thing. But once they came, I recapped the board, the machine sprung to life, and I started duplicating with it, and I was really impressed by the thing, but then I started to smell like a burning component smell. So I unplugged the machine, and I started like looking over it, and I opened up the trapdoor on the back, the like large metal trapdoor, and started prying into the circuitry in there. And I found out in the main board, which contains like your amplifiers, motor control stuff, some of the record circuitry, on that board there was a voltage regulator which had like burned itself to a crisp. And I started like removing it from the heat. I started removing it from the metal chassis. It was like heat sink to a chassis, to a metal section on the chassis. I removed it. I unscrewed it, and the old thermal paste that was holding it on there was like glue. It was just nasty. Like, it was like basically glue at that point. So I scraped the old thermal paste off. I got some better thermal paste, and then I ordered that part, and it came from New York City instead of China, so that was a lot better. I mean, to be honest with you, I'd rather have to deal with New York than China, because it takes a lot less to get your part. But after that, I was able to do some more duplication. I was blown away by the thing. I'm not an audiophile, honestly, but I feel like it sounded almost indiscernible to me. I played it for family and friends. They thought it sounded pretty much indiscernible. If you have an equalizer in the chain, it probably sounds even better. I really didn't even mess with using an equalizer with the thing. But then at this point in time, I got in contact with an old Telex technician through a lucky phone call. He sold me some pinch rollers and a few other small mechanical parts. He also sent me scans of the schematics for the 4000XL in the Mel. I showed him my gears that I had designed through email. We started talking back and forth. That's when I found out the XL stood for extended life, and that the key difference between the 4000 standard and the 4000XL is that the 4000XL machine has better quality heads and circuitry for handling duplication of Type 2 tapes. The XL also typically has polyurethane rollers. It was a much more expensive machine, I guess, back in the day, and designed more with longevity in mind. I was told that the two most common issues plaguing these machines, because the guy I talked to, like, he serviced hundreds of these. He said that the two common issues that he would always see were the gears and the heads, and they had no solution for that gear issue. But a lot of the 4000 standards eventually had 4000XL heads, like, retrofitted onto them, because the 4000 heads, I guess, would just wear down really fast, and you get low-fidelity, muddy duplications, which I saw, but more on that later. I guess, essentially, the dude, well, I don't guess. I talked with the dude who designed the heads for the 4000XL, and he now works on, like, ATM machines and stuff, and he offered to sell me a bunch of them. He's like, I have, like, a garage full of these. I can't get rid of them. He's like, I'll make you a bulk deal if you want to just buy them, but I don't really have any use for the things, so. Anyway, to make the long story short, I started working on the 4000 standard, and it had the same exact issues as the 4000XL, but it also had two fried SMD op amps. I got it fixed. I was super disappointed. The heads were so worn that the recordings made with them were pretty much indiscernible. I decided to stash the machine in my garage for parts. So, that's the tale of two Telexes, I guess. And I've included with this video, STLs that I designed for the gears, as well as the schematics that were mailed to me by the former Telex employee. I've scanned them. I'm hoping to release this information. I primarily made this video because I get a million emails and a million replies to an old forum post I made with people asking me about how they can service their Telex machine. Like, how can I service my 4000? How can I service my 4000XL? So hopefully this answers a lot of the common questions and provides individuals looking to service their machines with documentation and with STLs for those gears, so you could probably 3D print a replacement part. I don't know. I enjoyed working on the stuff. I enjoyed running my shitty basement bedroom tape label. It was fun. Maybe someday I'll pick it back up. Every time I do a video like this, I write a script out, and then I print that script. And I'm always sitting in my backyard, just looking at that fucking script, and reading off exactly what I wrote, and then going off on, like, beatnik poetry style Jack Kerouac rants, yo. Like, I'm a cool fucking cat, bro. I'm part of the beat generation. But, yeah, I just start reading these off, and it's, I just eventually lose the focus of the video, so hopefully the video was useful. We'll end it there.